The movie begins with Hugh Glass and his son, Hawk, along with a group of tough trappers, crawling through the forest, hunting for pelts like the 19th century entrepreneurs they essentially were. But as anyone who has watched a survival movie knows, if things start out peacefully, it won't be long before everything goes wrong. And that's exactly what happens when a patrol of Arikara warriors decides to pay them a not-so-friendly visit. Chaos erupts, arrows fly, screams echo, and before anyone can say, "That was close," Glass runs to warn the others. In the midst of the turmoil, only a handful of survivors manage to board a boat and escape down the river. The first rule of fur trappers: always have a plan B and a boat. Since Glass knows the area better than any Old West GPS, he suggests abandoning the boat and heading to Fort Kiowa on foot. Of course, there's always that one guy in the group who loves to argue. This time, it's Fitzgerald, a bitter trapper who thinks Glass's plan is an invitation to death. But since the expedition leader, Henry, sides with Glass, Fitzgerald has no choice but to follow along, grumbling like an old man the whole way. Before leaving, they hide the pelts so they won't be handing them over on a silver platter to anyone. What comes next? A lot of walking and even more of Fitzgerald's complaining, who, besides picking on Glass, takes every chance to mock Hawk for being half Pawnee. This guy would be the king of nasty online comments if the internet existed back then. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, a Pawnee chief is on a personal mission, finding his kidnapped daughter. He tracks a camp and leads his search north. As the trappers continue their trek, Glass, who apparently never heard the advice "don't mess with cubs," stumbles upon some adorable bear cubs. Of course, their mother is not happy about the unexpected visitor and decides to teach him a lesson in the most brutal way possible. The attack is vicious, the kind that makes you never underestimate a mother protecting her young again. Just when Glass thinks the bear is done with him, he tries to shoot her, only making her even angrier. A bloody duel follows, ending with both of them rolling down a hill. In the end, the bear dies, but Glass is left more broken than a phone dropped from a 10-story building. The team finds him soon after, and Henry tries to provide first aid, but honestly, Glass's condition is so bad that they start discussing what to do with him. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, the French are negotiating with the Pawnees, which basically means trying to pay as little as possible. They want weapons and horses in exchange for pelts, but the Pawnee chief knows the value of what he has and drives a hard bargain. In the end, 5 horses change owners, and the search for the chief's daughter continues. Back at the trappers' camp, Henry decides to split the group. One team goes ahead while the other stays behind to care for Glass, who now looks more like a bear rug than a human being. Hawk never leaves his father's side, doing his best to keep him alive. The journey is slow and agonizing, and soon, Fitzgerald, ever the optimist, not really, suggests a practical solution, finishing Glass off and lightening the group's burden. Henry, a tough leader but still a man with a heart, can't pull the trigger. Honestly, neither could I. If I were in that situation, I'd just strap Glass to a horse and hope for the best. Speaking of movies, fun fact, Leonardo DiCaprio actually ate raw bison liver during filming. Now that's dedication to a role. Now the question is, do you think Glass survived purely through sheer willpower? Or did he have a healthy dose of luck and script on his side? Let me know in the comments, but back to the story. Captain Henry, wanting to do the right thing, but also not wanting to waste too much time, pays a few men to take care of poor Hugh Glass, who now looks like a punching bag with a pulse. Among the Good Samaritans are Jim Bridger, a naive young man who would probably work for free, and Fitzgerald, who, being a true Old West businessman, only takes the job for $300. After all, he needs to make up for lost profits. But before leaving, Fitzgerald solemnly swears to take good care of Glass, which in scoundrel language translates to, "I'll get rid of him as soon as possible." And that's exactly what he tries to do. As soon as the others leave, Fitzgerald begins his special care by digging a grave and attempting to send Glass to the afterlife. The plan might have worked, but young Hawk arrives at the wrong moment and ends up getting stabbed by the villain, who then lies to Jim and convinces him to flee, claiming the Arikara are attacking. Jim, not being the brightest of the bunch, hesitates to abandon Glass, but eventually caves to the deception, leaving behind a canteen as a parting gift. Meanwhile, our protagonist crawls to find his son, only to discover it's too late. Like any determined father, he vows revenge. On his journey, he finds an unlikely ally, Hekuk, a wise Pawnee who basically gives him a survival tutorial. Hekuk tries to convince Glass that revenge is in the hands of the creator, but our hero doesn't seem convinced. What does he do? Keeps crawling through the snow and getting into even more trouble. After escaping an Arikara attack, jumping off a waterfall, sleeping inside a horse carcass, and rescuing the chief's daughter, he finally closes in on his prey. Meanwhile, Fitzgerald reaches the fort, lies shamelessly to Henry, and even walks away with a nice paycheck. Jim, who finally finds his moral compass, refuses the money and starts regretting his choices. But the tables turn when a Frenchman appears with Glass's canteen, proving he's not dead. Henry rushes off to investigate, while Fitzgerald, ever the villain, steals the fort's money and flees. Glass is rescued and, along with Henry, sets out to hunt Fitzgerald down. The finale doesn't disappoint. Henry is killed, Glass sets up a Hollywood-worthy ambush, and the two engage in a brutal fight by the river. At the moment of final revenge, Glass remembers Hekuk's words and chooses not to dirty his hands, sending Fitzgerald downriver for the Arikara to finish the job. The tribe's chief, grateful for Glass saving his daughter, lets him go. And so our hero, exhausted, walks into the forest where he has one last vision of his wife. Did he survive after that? Well, that's left to our imagination. One of Leonardo DiCaprio's best performances. If this role didn't win him an Oscar, nothing would. Now, if I were in Glass's shoes, I might have reconsidered the whole sleeping inside a horse thing. Wasn't there another way to stay warm? And you? Do you think Glass should have killed Fitzgerald himself, or did he do the right thing by leaving him to the Arikara? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next video.